All right, happy Friday, everybody. It's Friday, AI Friday, and I'm down here at the Mr. Landlord convention, and I put together an artificial intelligence presentation, and I gave a specific example. I was trying to think of something that the landlords could use and take home and use in their business, and I'm just going to show you what I came up with. I gave that presentation yesterday. I thought it went over really well. Had a lot of positive response to it. And I thought, hey, I'm just going to share it with everybody in my audience. All right, man. Coffee's a little bit cold today. All right, let's go. So I'm going to go with the idea of a newsletter. So when I was a landlord, we would put out a newsletter every month. It was really difficult for me to put out that newsletter. I had to write it every month, and I just stumbled with it. I didn't enjoy it. I knew it was really good to communicate with the tenants, and so it was just something that I did on and off that I realized that artificial intelligence could really benefit me to be able to do things like this. I'd like to talk about some of the unique aspects in a way to really personalize this and use artificial intelligence to do it. Okay, so I started with in Mr. Landlord's group. What's really cool is that he's got landlords that have been landlording for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some of them 25 years. And he himself has been doing helping landlords for 40 years. I think it's his 40th year anniversary. So I recognized really quick the amount of data that they, as a group and as individuals that they had. And I tried, AI is great at figuring out data and seeing things in the data that you can't see. So I was trying to mesh this idea of the data that the landlords have with the newsletter that none of them like to do, but all of them know that it's important to do. So I kind of walked them through a way to use AI to integrate and to make a newsletter that is greater than just going to ChatGPT and typing out a whole bunch of things to say, make me a newsletter, and something comes out that's very AI sounding, not very specific, and maybe even not very useful. So here's what we started to do. We started with the data that the landlords had. And some of them had data for long periods of time. It's in Excel spreadsheets or it's on their QuickBooks, which can be downloaded to Excel spreadsheets, et cetera, et cetera. And so I tried to set up a chain inside the ChatGPT to get to where we wanted to be. So the first thing that we would do is we would take the data that we wanted, and that data specific that I was talking about in this instance was the maintenance data. Like you've got all the maintenance for all your properties over a long period of time. You can put it in an Excel spreadsheet and you can upload that into ChatGPT, and you can write a prompt that's going to help you analyze that data. And so this is the prompt that I suggested that they use, right? So the prompt is acting as an expert analyst, analyze the single family home portfolio data and audience insights, and identify a correlation about maintenance. And then it was just, it's click and grab, and you drop it in the ChatGPT, and then you hit return, and then ChatGPT will go through all that data and all the maintenance that you have done over the years for all your properties. And we asked it to come up with correlations about what are some of the things that you're spending on maintenance that is consistent. And because the idea, of course, the comments, I believe this is more cash, less drama, something to that effect. And so I was trying to find a way that we could use that newsletter to correlate to solving a problem in their business. And one of those problems that I came up with was, of course, maintenance. Right. So ChatGPT then dumps out a whole bunch of information about your portfolio. The bigger your portfolio and the better that you kept your data, the better the results will be. And let's say that data went through and it found out, hey, that you're spending an inordinate amount of time and money on the HVAC systems. And we all know as landlords that if you've been around a long time, that HVAC systems go bad. They're a pain. They always go bad in June on a Friday when it's 98 degrees for the first time or whatever it is, but they can be a real expense in the portfolio. And so ChatGPT goes through your data, finds out, okay, you have a problem with the HVACs. So how do we use AI to then go and then actually make an impact? And the key is when we're going to make our newsletter is we want to make our newsletter in the language of our tenants. When you're talking to someone, it's really important to mirror them. If they use a certain language to you, you use a certain language to them. And that's a very powerful way to communicate and connect with an individual. And so we're going to use that methodology in our newsletter. So what we did was we went out and we started to, well, where do you go to find information about tenants? I think my favorite place to go out and find information about tenants is Reddit. Because when people go on Reddit, there's all these threads on Reddit that are available, and everybody gives their opinion about being a tenant, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you can go to Reddit and literally get thousands, if not tens of thousands, of comments that are created by tenants. And those comments are in their own language, and talking about the things that they're passionate about, the things that they care about. And that's a great place to start when you're trying to relate and identify with your audience in that newsletter, and that you want to give a newsletter that they resonate with and that they speak well to. So you can use Manus, or you can do copy and paste, or you can use Operator. There's a lot of ways that you can go out and get that data. But what we did was we put together 1,000 comments about being a tenant, and all the things that they were frustrated with, and all their concerns, and all their language. And then we put it through a process where we wanted to identify the language of the tenant. We wanted to identify the age of the tenant. We wanted to identify how they spoke, what the languages they spoke, what the phrases they used. And we asked ChatGPT to identify all those things within that data. So we went in, and then we hit the return button, and then ChatGPT goes through in a matter of seconds, comes down with pages and pages of data. And now I have a persona of who my tenant is. And so now I want to write my newsletter. So now I have my persona, but now I want to write my newsletter. And if you've ever used like a ChatGPT and you just print something out, it really does sound like it's made by AI. It's very robotic. It's not very fluid. And so what you want to do is you want to find a way to humanize that conversation, or the way that you write. And the best way to do that is to use your own data. Now, I do a bunch of podcasts. I do these Facebook Lives every morning. So there's a lot of data on Rich Lennon speaking. And so what I've done is I've created my Rich Lennon AI voice. And so I take all my podcasts and I upload them to text, and I put them in a text file. I upload all my Facebook Lives into a text file, and then I put them all in one place. And I've got what is essentially everything the way that Rich Lennon speaks. And so now I've got the data on what I'm trying to go after, which is like an HVAC system in this situation. And I've got my client, which is I've got the voice and the tone of my client that is my tenant. And now I'm going to overlay that with my voice. And the way I came up with my voice is, and I took this prompt directly from a friend of mine. His name is Francis Ablola. He gave me this prompt. And let me make sure I go up here and get this prompt. All right. And so I took all of Rich Lennon's AI for Business, Francis Ablola. I took this prompt from him. It was very helpful. And so I have all my data of all the things that I've talked to, and I put, this is the prompt I used for Rich Lennon's clone. I said, analyze this transcript to identify unique voice and tone of Rich Lennon. Create a style guide detailing personality, tonality, reading and writing level, common words and phrases, as well as stylistic and transitional patterns. And so then I uploaded my data, which is all the ways that I speak. I hit return, and now I get an AI version of how Rich Lennon communicates. And so then I went and I asked it to write a newsletter aimed at the persona of my tenant using their own language in the tone and the voice of the Rich Lennon that I created. And I asked it to write a newsletter based on the 4 seasons, and that is, and the newsletter is meant to help the tenant and convince the tenant that changing the filter in the HVAC is going to save them time over the summer, save them time over the winter, save them money over the summer, and save them money over the winter. And I was able to do this in like maybe 4 or 5 minutes total, where we were able to come up with 12 different newsletters that went out to my tenants. And I don't know, I just want to share today that road, that path. And it was a really good example of how we can use AI that's out there today and put it into our business, right? So at first I went out and identified the problems in my own portfolio by analyzing the data about maintenance, about my own properties. And I did it right in ChatGPT. And then I went out and I looked for who my tenant is, what is the language they speak, how do they want to be spoken to, and I found that language out there on Reddit on all the posts that they had done. And so I parsed up all that information and figured out who my tenant was and how they like to be spoken to and the issues that were important to them. Then I overlaid it with my tone, with the way I speak, the things that I'm passionate about. And that way it made the ultimate newsletter transcript very, very real. It didn't seem like AI at all. It really did seem like Rich Lennon was writing that newsletter. And then I said I wanted the newsletter to achieve the goals that I had in mind, which were I wanted to decrease my maintenance costs, specifically around that HVAC. And so in a matter of 5 minutes, we had written out a monthly newsletter that went out to everybody. And anyway, it was received really well, and I thought it was a really good example of how you can use AI in your business. And maybe you're a landlord, or maybe you're not. Maybe you want to write a newsletter, maybe you don't. But I think those steps and those processes in there will give you some ideas about a way that maybe you could use AI in your business today. I have no idea. Oh, 10 minutes, I'm out. I'm too long in time. Everybody have a great day. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, visit me at richlennon.com, where I talk about growing the money, talk about lending the money. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.